Okay, we're actors, right? We know how to sell ourselves. Let me introduce myself twice. First, I'll present myself in the kind of way a publicist or an agent would love. You know, just the good stuff, a list of credits, awards, I'll name drop a bunch of celebrities, and I'll slightly exaggerate things where I can. Basically, I'll sound like a bit of a tool. Then I'll introduce myself a second time, but I'll be a little more real. Take one. My name is Daniel Widdowson. I'm an Australian of the Year finalist for contributions to the creative arts, and I have a doctorate in creative arts focusing on Shakespearean literature. I've played guest starring roles on NCIS Sydney, Home and Away, Royal Flying Doctor Service, Last King of the Cross, Plum, Strife, Colin from Accounts, Harrow, Total Control, Reef Break. I hosted Ground Force, as well as one of Australia's most loved children's television shows, Saturday Disney, from 2000 through to 2007. I've been invited to the Logies, to perform at telethons, to the opening of Disney theme parks, all around the world. And I've had the pleasure of working with some great A-listers such as Zac Efron, Vanessa Hudgens, Chris Hemsworth, Hilary Duff, and so many more. I've been awarded Best Director at the Florence Film Awards and Best Screenplay at the New York Movie Awards. Ah, that sounds great, right? But here is take two. My name is Daniel Widdowson. Last year I filmed 212 self-tape auditions and I landed 5 roles. So I was unsuccessful 207 times. 5 of 212, by the way, is a success rate of 2.8%. It's also roughly the equivalent of 6 weeks full-time work spent on auditions, which I should point out are unpaid. And this doesn't include the 30+ in-person auditions. I've thought about walking away from the entertainment industry hundreds of times. My longest period of time without even receiving one audition was 12 months. I've been taken advantage of on set, I've been sexually abused during auditions, I've performed gigs that I've never got paid for, I've had producers grab me on both shoulders, yell at me, degrade me in front of my peers, and tell me I don't have a creative bone in my body and that I will never work in this industry again. I've made it to the final round of life-changing roles that I just missed out on. I've cried after absolutely bombing auditions. And I battle with depression and anxiety. So this is me, but this is also me. And this is mental health and the actor's life. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll speak to plenty of people who are qualified to discuss all things mental health and acting. But keep in mind this film exists as a resource and a platform for actors to share their story in the hope that you may relate to one or two of us. If you want to learn more about a particular person, a coping mechanism, or you'd like to explore a course or a school that's mentioned, all the material is available at salthousecreative.com.au/mentalhealth. The first person I want you to meet is Ben Brock. He's a good friend of mine with a great heart, and he's a bloody talented actor. We candidly discussed our struggles with mental health and how it correlates to acting.
It's probably the one thing I've had that I don't know how to do, and I've had 20 years in it, but I still don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea.
Is that fun?
It's so fun.
Or is it imposter syndrome?
Well, there's no finish line, is there?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's
hard to measure.
You can't, and as soon as you do that, you're completely out of the moment anyway, and all the self-reflection in the world is not necessarily going to make you better. So it correlates quite well with mental illness in a way. Like it's that kind of bridge between thought and feeling, which I find really challenging and good. Not so much now, but when I tried to leave it, there was always something that was pulling me back, and it was something about that connection and feeling things, and being allowed to feel things as well, which was kind of cool.
My mental health struggles I didn't really notice until I was working as an actor.
Yeah, right.
And that's when my depression and anxiety really chose to flare up. It's unfortunate timing, but thankful for the journey.
Was that all of a sudden because people were watching you, or you had to be somebody? Or
the depression kicked in when I was doing radio, because you'd read the news every morning. Every single morning you're reading the news.
Hard to switch off.
Going on. I just became numb because I couldn't feel. I didn't want to feel the emotions attached with this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And the anxiety was triggered from I was caught up in riots in Central America. It was terribly scary.
Whoa.
Car was surrounded by dudes with chains and guns.
Yeah, right.
At the time though, I'd coped really well. And I later learned that I was actually just so scared that
you just shut down.
my body shut down. And then that came out later. So when I'm on stage, I felt trapped, like I couldn't escape. Then I'm having panic attacks.
That's like major trauma.
Yeah, panic attacks on stage, panic attacks when I'm supposed to be filming something, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to do the work to process this and figure out what's going on,
right,
so I can function.
Mine was less anxiety and more straight depression, so I would disappear for months. You go through moments of extreme emotion with any mental illness, but it's not that actually scares you, it's the apathy. It's the...
Right.
Yeah, so when I shut down and when I'm not feeling anything, because we all want to feel, that becomes really terrifying. And that's when days are lost. And then, back when it was really bad, like in hindsight, whole years were lost in a way.
Wow.
You're just going through the motions and you're doing all the right things, and you've got pop psychology in one ear and then you've got your therapist in the other ear, and doing all your somatic therapies and your physical exercise, and you're just going through the motions, but you're forgetting how to actually live your life. There's a void, and when there's a void and there's nothing to focus on, then all of a sudden you start to reflect.
Right.
And reflection is so dangerous sometimes. It's like that's when you allow the spirals to begin, and those thoughts that creep into your head and they keep going and they just whisper.
Yes.
And you know they're not right. You know that it's ridiculous. I actually really feel for teenagers that go through it, because it must be terrifying.
Yes.
It's like all of a sudden I can't function. What am I doing? I'm feeling these extreme emotions, and
Yes.
there's nothing to measure it with. It's like even now, like I'm 50, and I've got so much to measure that against, but I still get lost in it.
What do you do to cope?
In one part of my brain, I want to sit there and just not say anything and say, I don't know. I don't know the answers. I honestly don't.
I found it interesting that numbness for Ben was terrifying, whereas my body adopted numbness as a safety mechanism. It reminded me of how vastly diverse our experiences of mental health can be, and that we're not going to find that one magical single approach that fixes everything for everyone. Next up, Sophie Carter. I worked with Soph at Fox Studios Australia when we were both fairly new to the craft, way back in 1999. She's a highly successful musical theatre actress, as well as a qualified counsellor who founded Centred Stage, a training and counselling organisation doing great things in the world of mental health within the arts.
Working professionally, I always observed friends and colleagues having difficulties, especially in the workplace. And I think also going back even further, in hindsight now, looking at the Whopper experience, there was just no talk of mental health or well-being. But there also wasn't really a lot of talk about like the realities of what a life in the industry would be like. And this is absolutely not to sort of point fingers at Whopper or anything, because they have definitely changed. A lot of tertiary institutions are realizing that there is more of a duty of care to sort of like prepare students. So I'm really happy to report that that has changed. I guess I got to a point in my career when I looked back and I was like, I love this industry so much, but we're not perfect. I've seen people struggle. Like, surely there's got to be something done about that. And especially in the performing arts, where I think we're subconsciously told we're not allowed to have a problem with things, the show must go on and all those sort of problematic things.
And you're worried about coming across as a diva sometimes, aren't you? Like
right.
saying, I just need a moment.
Is just
get on stage.
Absolutely, is that there's this culture around being reliable, dependable, skillful, ready to go, all that sort of stuff, because, you don't know where your next job's coming from. You don't want to be labelled as that person. People who work in the arts, we have to have a level of vulnerability and openness to be creative.
Yeah.
But it's coupled with a career and an industry that is very unfair. And so how do you traverse those two things? How do you not become so stone-hearted to cut off yourself from your emotions, but how do you remain resilient in the face of challenges that are going to happen? this is the thing. You are going to miss out on jobs. You are going to be rejected. You are going to have time away from the industry. So how do we stay buoyant in the face of that? Because it will happen. That doesn't get spoken about a lot. It's how do we sing? How do we dance? How do we act?
Right.
It's not like how do you cope while you're on tour and you're away from your support people? Or how do you cope with an injury and you're suddenly not doing that show for 4 weeks and you feel like you're letting everybody down?
So you're tackling the mental health struggles in the industry from a preventative measure.
Yeah.
Let's learn about it before it happens.
Yeah, both. I think both, because I think, with some clients, it's like, oh, they're already out there doing it. And I think now they're facing roadblocks that maybe they weren't expecting. Centre Stage sort of works in a couple of different ways. So there's like a private practice, one-on-one counselling or coaching, people book in a session, and it's like just normal counselling, but it's usually around the arts in some capacity.
Right.
Prevention in the way of sort of education. So I've developed 3 different workshops, one on performance anxiety, one on just general mental health and well-being. So like how do we sustain a really good quality of level of our own personal well-being while we're working in the arts? So where do we find our positive emotions from? How can we seek that out if it's not coming from that thing that we love? You know, the newest one, which I really love, which is actually dealing with rejection. It's like, let's put it all on the table. We're going to just talk for an hour and a half to 2 hours about rejection and how we work with rejection, because it is something that you will absolutely experience.
Yes.
And it's really, really normal. But how do we work through it, as opposed to getting off the phone with your agent, finding out you didn't get that thing that you've been dreaming about for weeks, months, years.
Isn't it a horrible feeling?
And then what do you do after that? You put the phone down, and then what do you do? How do we prepare ourselves so we get back up on the horse and we're our best selves again and we can sort of continue moving forward?
This is the kind of thing for young actors to learn this before they enter the industry would be
absolutely
life-changing.
Yeah.
There's another person from the Fox Studios alumni that I want you to meet. Like Sophie, he went on to do some incredible work in the world of musical theatre. Todd Keys. I've been following his journey since we worked together, and I was encouraged to see him so passionate about training and mentoring young people.
Fox Studios was great, but I was still hungry.
Yep.
Like I wanted more. That feeling at Fox Studios, it was like, this is not what it was cracked up to be. Yeah.
Well, it was funny, wasn't it? Because you're surrounded by, I felt, we're surrounded by professional studios.
Yep.
And loved being a full-time actor, but you couldn't help but look over the fence and go, I want
literally
to be
over the
movies.
fence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what it was Baz Luhrmann's, what were they doing?
Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge
They did
was
one of the
being
Star
made
Wars is there as well.
50 metres away. Yeah, and here we are on our, $18 an hour or whatever. Because it gets harder. You're 25, you go to a Christmas party. Todd, what are you doing? How are you? You all right? Yeah, I'm good. Barry down there at Wyoming? And I was, no, well, he runs a car yard and I happen to know him very well. And you would make an amazing car salesman. Oh, thank you.
Which, you know what? Here's my argument. If you're a doctor or a teacher or you have a trade, you don't get asked, oh, how's work? How's it going? Are you getting enough work? But if you're an actor, you're like, are you making enough?
Yeah, it's the pity look.
Thanks for asking.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
You okay? Yeah, and I understand where it comes from, because it comes from care and the fact that I was 23 or 24 and still moving in and out of home. It's hard and it's soul destroying, and you start comparing yourself to other people. Long story short, is my auntie, rest in peace. Auntie Sonia, she said to me, "Well, Todd, you can either be a quitter in this life or you can be a loser. Which one are you? Because we're all going to die. What do you want on your tombstone, honey?" And I was like, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Do you want to be a quitter? Or do you want to be a loser? I'm like, they both sounded pretty bad to me until she started to explain it. And she's like, well, a quitter, it's over. Your dream's dead. You're dead. There lies Todd, dead, the quitter. I was like, well, that sounds pretty bad. But there lies Todd, the loser, who never gave up. You might not get your dream. You might not get what you want, but you die a loser, honey. It's 1,000,000 times better. Merry Christmas. But seriously, that actually changed my life.
Wow.
I was like, I'm never going to give up. Never.
Great.
Until I die. The day I die, I want to be known as Todd the loser.
Since that moment, Todd went on to perform with Opera Australia. I could spend a fair bit of time listing all his credits, but I'll settle for these two gems. He played the Pirate King in Opera Australia's Pirates of Penzance, and he performed under the direction of Julie Andrews in the 2016 production of My Fair Lady.
I call it the 3 T's. Talent. Yeah, everyone who is in this industry has some sort of talent.
Yes.
Yeah, they come to a teacher to learn more about technique. Second T, because technique grows the talent. But the third T, and the most important, I believe, in the industry is temperament, which includes your grit, your tenacity, your willingness to cop all these blows and all the comments at Christmas, you should go and work in real estate, or all the highs and all the lows. But that temperament is what forms you as an artist, to be open, and you don't become a product of your environment anymore.
Let me introduce you to a model, actress, ambassador with an impressive temperament. Daria Varlamova won Miss Universe Australia in 2021. The journey behind this achievement speaks volumes toward her character. And a side note, I suddenly lose my beard during this interview, so let me be transparent. First, you're not seeing the interviews in the order that we filmed them. And second, I was working on a couple of other gigs during the filming process, and when a director tells you to shave, you shave.
I ended up becoming a national finalist, and then I ended up placing in the top 5 in Australia. But then I thought, why not do this one more time? There's an age cutoff, and I was a couple of years away from that. So I was kind of the mentality, you know what, it's a lot of work, but I'm going to keep trying until I see what happens, until I'm basically aged out. So I tried it again the next year, again in lockdown. And I remember we had our national final, and it was over Zoom. And I was sitting in my living room. It was a Tuesday night, just a regular Tuesday night. And my housemate was doing her taxes in the next room. And that night, October 19th, 2021, I was announced as Miss Universe Australia.
Daria speaks openly and positively about her ADHD diagnosis.
I remember to this day, when I was 12 years old, my teacher, she said, Daria, you're very academically gifted, you're doing this program, you're doing really well, you're so book smart. You're just a bit ditzy though. I know, I still can't believe it.
What year were you in when they said that?
I was in year 7, so that was the graduating primary school class.
Ditzy, did she use that term?
She used that exact very term, and she was a young teacher. But yeah, to this day, when people might say one phrase and they might not think twice about it, especially the dynamic between a child and an adult. If a child hears that coming from a trusted adult, that can stick with you forever. Yeah. In my heart, it just didn't feel right. And I feel like because of the prevalence of social media, all this ADHD content that we see, drives a lot of awareness. So I thought, okay, I have to get this tested, because I was commencing my master's, and I remember I was struggling a little bit. So yeah, eventually I got the diagnosis, and the psychiatrist said, yep, I'm pretty positive you have ADHD and you are the combined presentation. So I had 6 out of 9 hyperactive traits.
Oh, wow.
Which surprises a lot of people, because I had been told I have a calmer demeanor. And then 9 out of 9 inattentive traits.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine.
Well done. 100%.
100%
Good job.
ADHD test. My Russian family will be so happy. Anyway, got the diagnosis, got the medication. It was a bit of trial and error getting the right dose. And but when I had it for the first time, I thought, oh my God, people get this for free? Is this what a normal focusing brain is like? I couldn't believe it.
Daria has a significant online following, so I asked her how she handles online trolls and negative comments.
I've had a comment from a guy on Instagram once, and the comment was, what do you know about hardship, princess?
Oh my gosh.
And to a young, woman with ADHD who's an immigrant as well. And I didn't grow up rich or wealthy by any means. I did know something about hardship, and, coming to Australia, not knowing a word of English as well. There were some hardships there for sure. But people like to categorize people with a platform to make them feel better.
Yeah.
And it's very sad, because people are multi-dimensional beings, and we all have layers, right? And we all have different levels of hardships and different struggles. So you have to really have a good sense of self. You know, you don't need to replicate anything that's already out there. You are enough. You really are enough as you are. You've got a very unique skill set, a very unique story and background and set of characteristics. And there's not one person in the world who can replicate that. And that goes for the next person and the next. And when you approach life in that way, there's no way you cannot feel like the most confident person in the world.
My former high school in Canberra, Darramarlin College, had recently named a brand new theatre after my old drama teacher, Joe Woodward. Even better, he's still teaching there. This man has a lot of wisdom to share. So I headed back to my hometown and sat down with him in the Joe Woodward Theatre.
In the late 1975, a friend of mine had been producing a show called Number 96, and I think The Box as well. They're two serials that were quite popular. He said, "You've got to come down to Sydney to see this show." I said, "Why? What's it?" He said, "You just got to come down to see it." And I said, "Oh, you're right." So we organised and I drove down to Sydney to see this show called Flowers by Lindsay Kemp, which was based on Jean Genet's Our Lady of the Flowers. And it was mostly like Butoh style, mime, extravagant, mostly nude.
Oh, wow.
And the opening...
And you were sold? You saw the nudity and you're like...
No, I was terrified. No. I'm standing out there and all these bald-headed blokes, bare chest, beating drums, and on the walls there's all these newspaper cuttings with naive, kiddie-like drawings of murder and stuff. And I'm looking at it thinking, this is just the most amazing, terrifying thing that I'd ever experienced. And at the end of it, I was just so shaken. It was what I had been discussing and looking at in sociology and philosophy, this idea of shaking your paradigms of thinking, shaking your ways of seeing the world. And immediately I thought, that's what theatre can do. I was finding working in theatre was getting tougher because there's a lot of travel to get jobs, and I had a family at this stage. And I read about Marsden, the guy who wrote Tomorrow When the World Began.
Oh, yeah, John Marsden.
John Marsden.
Yeah.
And he was an English teacher and he ran a school and he writes books. I said, oh, so you can do the arts and still keep teaching and doing other things. I came to understand a lot of what extreme anxiety was, particularly when I couldn't breathe. And I can remember feeling as if the ceiling was caving in the middle of the night. And I'd have these dreams about being an escapist, trying to get out from tunnels, and it was all closing in. And that sense was becoming very real at different times. But there is such a thing as like a chronic depression. It's where you're not really depressed so much, or you're not aware of it. But I am aware then when things going along, the joy is going, you know, at those moments, right, when you feel the joy isn't there. There are very real things that you've got little control over at times, and they're going to play on your life. Being aware of that, and particularly in this sort of job, and a lot of people do their art. Why? So they can get some kind of sense of balance in this absurd, crazy world.
Yes.
The terror of going out in front of people watching you, and if you're not in quite the right way at that time, it can be an incredibly frightening thing.
Joe's words about stepping onto the stage when you're not in the right headspace prompted me to contact an amazing young actress who I've performed with, Chloe McWilliam. She was my stage daughter, Liesl, in The Sound of Music. Chloe was playing the role of Elsa in a local production of Frozen when she received the news her brother Harry had suddenly died in a work-related accident.
So I finished the show, and also it was like a very, like those songs are hard, like Idina Menzel, like they are hard. So I go outside and I'm sitting on the ground by the aircon and I'm eating my sandwich and I've got my drink bottle, and I ring my mum and she's like crying, and I was like, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong? She's like, nothing. Like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, oh, I just finished the first show. Like, what's going on? And she was like, nothing. You just have to finish the next show. Like, it's all good. Like, everything's fine. But my mum doesn't get very upset, but I could hear in her voice that something was wrong. I kind of got really stern, and I was like, no, like, tell me what, like, I'm not, like, you have to tell me. And she's like, look, Harry's been in an accident. That's all. Harry's been in an accident. He's at the hospital. I've got to go. Right. So now I'm upset because I don't know what's going on. I was like, okay, I'm doing the next show. Went back to the dressing room. I didn't really know. Still didn't, Harry's been in an accident. Like, what does that mean? Car accident? Like, what are you talking about? by the time I got on the stage, I knew something was really, really wrong.
Yeah.
Like I had this awful feeling in my stomach, and I just knew that he, like, I don't know, it was just bad, real bad.
Did you sense that he was gone at that point?
Yeah. It was like, I remember singing that song, Let It Go. Then I remember I finished that song on the whole little stairs thing, and I come down the stairs and I walk off stage, and Danielle Cross, who I've known for a very, very long time, and she's standing in the wings and she's just looking at me and she's crying, and she just like gave me a hug. Like I didn't even like, I just started walking and she just gave me a hug, and she was just like, and she wouldn't let go of me. And I was like, that's weird. That's very, very weird. We parked the car and I started running to the like emergency place, because that's where Mum said that they were. And I ran inside and I'm like looking around and I see like my 80-year-old grandma sitting down, and she stood up and she walked, and I walked over to her. I was like, what's going on? My mum is just like shaking her head like, what? And my grandma actually says it. She said that he'd been killed.
Why we only live to serve, try to bring stuff. It's delicious! Don't believe me? Ask the dishes. They must see. After all, this is France. As you did not hear, it is never second best. Don't fault your man will take the glasses and we are guests.
The show that I went back is the one that he was supposed to come and watch. And I'm not saying that's like, obviously it was literally all that was on my mind. And there was one song I had to sing where it was all about Elsa's parents died. And there's a song that she sings and it's all like, oh my God, like she's looking up to, her parents, like in whatever, and she's talking to them.
Can I ask how you did it? Like, how do you find, because I'm not sure I would have the strength to do that.
I know Harry would have wanted me to do it. He like knew how hard I had worked, and I'd finally gotten like, the role, because I've always been too tall or too young or whatever. And I found it really hard to actually come back here for like the first few times that I did. And I love this place. It's not like, I had so many positive things and so many memories and stuff, but yeah, it was literally worst week of my life. Sorry, I won't, let me do that properly.
You don't have to reenact it for us.
I use humour.
I'm the same. I use humour at the worst moments in my life just because it's the way I process. I'm like, I don't want to feel anything right now, so I'm going to make myself laugh instead.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't know if it's healthy, but it's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy to say that shortly after this interview, Chloe landed another lead role as Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. Tapping into your real life emotions and experiences when you're on stage or screen takes courage and vulnerability. And it can really mess with your mind. A mate of mine, Brad McMurray, is an actor ambassador. We worked together on Reef Break, and he's appeared in NCIS Sydney, Last King of the Cross, Neighbours, Tidelands, and so much more. We caught up and discussed the concept of tapping into your genuine experiences to benefit your performance art.
A lot of the work that we do is incredibly confronting because you're forced to examine yourself. And as you know, a lot of people don't like all of the elements of themselves, myself included.
Yeah.
And so to be forced to look into the mirror and confront those things so that you can kind of expose those things through your work can be incredibly challenging, and it can be kind of detrimental to some people who aren't quite ready to face that,
It's not every kind of job or industry where you're told, oh, can you be vulnerable and expose your demons in this scene, please?
Right.
And you go, oh, sure, let me just get that.
And we'll applaud you for doing so.
Yeah.
It's quite weird.
I'm going to pull out my deepest, darkest part of me and expose that. Please still love me afterwards. Brad found himself at a crossroad. He landed a role in actor mentorship and training, which came with a very impressive pay packet. But due to certain experiences, he chose to walk away from the corporate side of the craft.
A young acting student came to me and said, I'm really struggling. And I said, in what way? And we sat down outside in the sun and he had a chat. And it was home life and a whole bunch of things, and he'd been through a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, listen, there's help out there. I'm going to point you to the right people. And I'd really like you to talk to some people, and I'll get them to contact you if you're okay with that. And he said, I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. And I spoke to the bosses of the company and said, hey, listen, this young guy's really struggling. We need to keep an eye on him. And literally 5 days after having that conversation, he took his own life.
Oh my gosh.
And that weighed really heavily on me, like really, really heavily, because he was about my son's age at the time. And I remember talking to the bosses overseas, and, you know, their word to me was, you shouldn't take this stuff home with you. And I said, it's really hard not to.
While still working in the industry, Brad now runs the Actors Club on the Gold Coast, Queensland, where he mentors the next generation of actors.
Now, at the age I'm at, having seen a lot of young actors push so hard with every class and every workshop and everything that they can possibly do, and I've seen young actors have early kind of burnout, like an emotional burnout. And I can remember pursuing everything so hard and not getting a result, and then often that left me in a slump of going, why, if I'm pushing this hard, do I not get a run on the board? I think we view it early on as a 100-metre dash.
Yeah.
And you've got to get it done quick, and you've got to get in there. And then you realise after a period of time that it's not quantifiable, and sometimes it's a marathon.
Brad's the kind of guy who reminds me that humanity still exists within this industry, and that it's not always just a business. When Brad lost his wife to cancer, this is how one of Australia's best casting directors reached out.
My wife passed away.
Oh, wow.
And, I remember Tom McSweeney reaching out to me. This big box of homemade food arrived, and it was from Tom.
Wow.
And it was lasagnas, and he's like, I didn't think you'd want to worry about cooking, And it wasn't even one of those, if there's anything I can do, questions. He just did.
Just did something for you.
Just did it.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that.
Which is a great testament to his character too, isn't it?
100%.
Not just a casting director, I'm looking to cast someone, I'll get these people in, yes to you, no to you, go away.
He understands humanity.
Yes.
And the workings of that, and the smaller cogs that exist within, the creative world.
So of course our next stop is Tom McSweeney. Now, just so you're prepared, this was filmed via Zoom. If you put aside the quality of visual and sound, there's some gold here.
The biggest mistake the actor makes coming in is thinking about the job rather than recognizing they've already won. The fact that they got the audition means they are playing the part today. Whether they get to play it again is completely out of their control, but they get to play the part.
Casting directors aren't that dissimilar to actors when it comes to chasing a gig and having your high highs and your low lows.
Every career is cyclical. You have periods of massive employment and you have periods of drought. Casting directors too. And we're just like actors. We're out there pitching our wares. Every time you finish a project, you're convinced you'll never work again. And time goes by and you don't get a job, somebody else gets a job that you went for, and you get depressed and you get angry and you get jealous and you have all those same emotions. But this industry is geared to make you quit and to keep throwing obstacles in your path. And that's the industry testing your resolve. And if you just don't give up, eventually it'll give you another little kernel. It's hard, and you can be the best thing since sliced bread today and tomorrow be unemployable. I remember I got an Emmy nomination back in 2007, which was extraordinary. Oh my God, to be honored by your peers for the work you've done. And I was really proud of this particular job. And I knew I wouldn't win, but it wasn't about the winning, it was about being recognized. So I go to the ceremony, and as predicted, I was unsuccessful in attaining the trophy. But my obituary will say Emmy nominee.
Yeah.
So I come back, and for 8 months, I couldn't get a job.
Straight after that?
Right after that. I found out after the fact that the industry assumed that my price would have gone up, and they thought, oh, well, he's not going to want to do that now. People think things without getting the true facts.
There's one more golden nugget from Tom before we move on.
I tell actors all the time, you're going to see the same 5 faces on every couch to every audition you go to, because they're the same ilk as you. They're not the enemy. Either you're going to get the part or you're not. Whether they're here or not doesn't have anything to do with it. So it's a waste of energy to try to psych them out. Have a laugh, and to not to live in the if onlys, coulda, woulda, shoulda, because it's very often none of those apply. It's nothing you did wrong, and you weren't bad. Someone else was more right.
Yeah.
Not better, more right for this particular stew.
Simone Parrott is the senior producer at Belvoir Street. She's also a mental health first aid trainer. She talked me through the rather unusual way she found herself in the producer's seat.
I was a dresser on a musical at the Opera House called Oscar's Turn to Sing that nobody would ever have heard of, and I was dressing 8 actors that included at the time Sharon Millichip, Leonie Page, Jackie Ray, the kind of cream of the crop of performers. And then a second season of that show was slated for the following year. We got a week in and the producers pulled the plug. It's a bit of an introduction to the industry. So I sort of woke up on my parents' couch going, just finished uni, job's just finished unexpectedly for us, the whole company. Don't have any prospects, what do I do next? And I was lucky enough, as most of us are, to have one of those company members recommend me to David Penfold, who was the general manager at the State Theatre in Sydney at the time, who was looking for someone to come in for a month and fill in as his admin manager. And on the last day, I went for an interview to work as a dress on Miss Saigon, so the 1995 production of Miss Saigon that Cameron McIntosh was bringing into Australia, and got a call saying, we don't have a dressing position for you, which was all I was really qualified to do professionally, but are you interested in a technical production assistant role for 3 months? And so that was like 5 rungs up the ladder. So I spent 3 months working with the technical team and the international creatives, and the technical assistant that I had worked with had decided to go to Really Useful Company, and I was offered a full-time job at 21 years old in Cameron McIntosh's office here in Sydney, working on Miss Saigon. We had Phantom at the Theatre Royal, and we were working on touring plans for the 10th anniversary production of Les Miserables, so quite a long time ago, that went into Singapore, Hong Kong, Seoul, and was the first Western production to go into South Africa. So I learnt from the best technical management team in the business.
At what stage did being aware of other people's mental health in the industry become a priority for you?
Look, I think I've always picked up on when people were struggling. I think that's just something inherently in my nature, older sibling, part of the gene. But I think probably when I started to teach, and I've been lecturing in events and entertainment management for almost 18 years, the last 14 years full time. And I think when you start to see somebody struggling with what would be basic concepts, or someone struggling with the ability to compartmentalise things in their life, then I started to pick on the fact that there may be something more we could be doing individually and collectively as an industry to actually assist people. So we know that there are a lot of things about the entertainment industry that work really well, but COVID there are things that are actually not working, that we need to put some additional supports and some additional training or some additional strategies or thoughts behind how, as an industry, as organisations within that industry and individual practitioners, we can better navigate those highs and lows that we've been talking about. Mental Health First Aid Australia has been in existence for about 22 years now. It started out of Melbourne, fully Australian product that's now licensed all over the globe. It is a practical approach to not solve mental health concerns because we're not qualified to do so. What it does is allows you to notice signs and the symptoms where someone might be struggling. What is it that you've noticed? What is it someone said to you? Which often someone on the ground in the entertainment industry is much better to pick up on, because we with people 40, 50 hours a week. And we notice that we sit next to someone, we in a theatre at 11 o'clock at night, you get your half an hour break to grab something to eat, and somebody might go, I'm not feeling great today. Or you notice a decline perhaps in their ability to cope under stressful situations. People say, I'm not sleeping very well. Someone says, I'm feeling, I'm not sure I can cope with, going into the next part of this production. And so the training course, which is for trainers, it's a 5-day training course for the standard course. allows you to learn a very specific program and a 5-step process to actually go, I can identify these things, what do I do next? And I think most people would say that they notice that people are not well, or that they're struggling, or that there might be some emerging issue. What they don't know what to do is, what do they do next?
Yeah. I wanted to know how Simone personally handled the downtime when she was new to the business.
Well, when I was younger, I think the world was kinder to us than I think the world is to young people now. And I certainly had great supports, great family, great friends, and I think that still extends to today, that having great supports makes a huge difference in being able to navigate any profession, but particularly the entertainment industry.
Ah, yes, the importance of family. Meet Jamie Rogers, who landed the role of young Billy Elliot in the Australian tour when he was 12 years old. His family support and love was a big factor in processing the post-show blues.
I feel like the post-show blues were a bit different to what most would experience because we weren't expecting the show to end so soon. But because of COVID, we got told that it's possible that these would be the last shows we would perform for the musical. And I did my last show, and I remember coming off stage and I had some tears running down my face because I was like, that could have been my very last show ever. Then we found out, and it was very sad. And we all cried for an hour all together, the cast and stuff. But it was really good to have the support of my family, because the thing is, I hadn't seen my siblings and my dad for quite a while because of the show.
Right.
And I guess coming back to a loving house with my siblings, and yeah, I just feel like with the post-show blues, it's very important to have people you love close with you.
Sounds like your family's very close.
Yes.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
A loving house and a close family and or friends. A mate of mine, Vivien Sail, has spent a lifetime in the entertainment industry. She's worked at Columbia Films, danced on the West End, and she's crossed paths with Cary Grant and Laurence Olivier. But before all that, she was just a kid with a dream and a loving father who supported that dream.
My sister is about 6 years older than me, and she was the sensible one. Yeah, she did her proper education. She went and worked in a bank, but I was the stupid idiot.
No, you weren't. You were the excitable, creative one. What did your parents say when you suggested that your career path was going to be more creative arts?
Oh, my father's attitude was incredible. When I came up with crazy ideas, he would just do it for me. He'd drive me here, drive me there, or whatever.
And when did you land your first professional gig? What was that doing?
Probably when I was about 16.
As a dancer?
Oh, yeah. It was in a place called Coventry, which is north of London. So Dad, bless him, he had to drive me up there, find me somewhere to stay. It was a pantomime, because they have a lot of pantomimes in London and England. But the work actually came quite quickly. It was amazing.
Parents, I'm not saying you have to be a crazy stage mom or stage dad. I'm not saying drop everything and become a slave to your child. I'm just pointing out there is need for support from your family and friends, because the industry can be confusing, daunting, and sometimes dangerous for young people. Sarah Monahan played the role of Jenny Kelly in the 80s hit sitcom Hey Dad. She talked me through some serious behind-the-scenes struggles.
We filmed 13 episodes, and Dad died right at the end of the 13 episodes in October of '86, and it went to air the next year, but he never actually saw it go to air. Before Dad died, I didn't understand how you could have a comedy show about where one parent was dead, because how do you process that as a kid, that life could go on and still be funny when you've lost a parent?
Yes.
And then Dad died when the show became really popular, and we had all of that stuff about, like, we had to do all the Father's Day things, and every time we went out and people would scream out, "Hey Dad," on the street to me, and I had to learn very quickly how to process and deal with that, because otherwise if you don't do it, it's just gonna, be too hard.
Were there people around you to help you process that?
No.
Yeah, right.
No, the crew were amazing. I mean, all old middle-aged white men, but they were all just absolutely lovely.
See, there are some good middle-aged white guys.
Some good middle-aged white men, not executives at networks, but the crew were great.
Things got a lot worse for Sarah.
We all know now Robert was a pedophile, and it was widely known. He'd walked out the back and he was always very hands-on and touchy, and he walked out and like he just dropped his pants and like waggled it at me, and I like was terrified, and I'm out the back just drawing because people just left me alone on set. And I ran straight into like the makeup studio, slammed the door, and I'm like, Robert just showed me his dick. And they were like, what? And I'm like, Robert just showed me his dick. And they immediately locked the door and they were like, debrief and like what happened, and we went through the whole thing. And we all knew at this point that he was constantly trying to touch me and always doing stuff, but like when he dropped the pants, it was like nobody could deny it anymore that the guy was like not right. We had those big grey chairs, and he used to do this thing where when I would sit on the chair next to him in front of the 200 people studio audience, where he knew I would not flinch, he would put his hand down before you sat.
Oh my God.
And then, you know, wiggle fingers and stuff. So it was like
in a studio, during
in a
recording
live
with an
audience with 200 people.
Oh my
Like
God.
he was that bold because he knew he could get away with it.
This is why it's so important to have a support network of people you trust, people who genuinely have your back.
There are so many people that like you and hang on because of who you are and what they think you can do for them. But as soon as you need them to speak up for you, and even people that knew what was going on, I'm like, hey, I need you to like, and they were like, oh no, like I still, like, no, I can't speak up. And even today, it's like, I need people who are higher up in the food chain who knew what was going on, and they won't speak because they still want that paycheck.
So even today?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had such a distrust of journalists after that because they all knew what they wanted to write. They didn't care what it was. Going through the court process, there were some really bad journalists as well. But then I met a whole bunch of other people who worked as journalists and also morning producers and stuff that ended up becoming some of my best friends.
Great.
And they were my hugest advocates and were always there for me. And just like my best friend is JMO, and he actually came with me to the High Court when we had to go through the High Court and held my hand.
Correct.
And when we walked out, he was the one, because everyone knows him, and he's like, look, just give her some space. She'll give you a comment when she's ready, but don't come at her.
Good friend.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wonderful people, organisations and community groups working hard to ensure young people have a positive and healthy experience in this industry. To name a few, Canberra Youth Theatre, Western Australia Youth Theatre Company, St Martin's Youth Arts Centre, Outback Theatre for Young People, and Australian Theatre for Young People. I met with Joshua Maxwell, who co-founded the independent youth arts company, Japuka.
So for me, I was like, I want more opportunities and more consistent opportunities for young people, and B, I want the culture of those places to be places that young people can go and make mistakes and feel like they can be themselves or explore things. People grow and learn. There is very few times where a young person or an actor walks into a room and you just go, that person is incredible from day one. And high school, I mean, this is probably where we all get our cringe from, because there is all probably videos of us doing high school productions that were trash.
But we love them.
We love them. It's realistic expectations, and it's knowing that you have the capacity to learn and grow and evolve, and they all build and they all change.
Emma King, a young actress and former student at Macdonald College, attended mindset and performance training through RISE, an organisation that's dedicated to promoting and nurturing the mental health and overall well-being of young people.
RISE, with the focus on mental health, really drew me to it because it's something that's really important to me. If this is really what I want to do, I want to have the tools to kind of navigate the industry and stuff without it impacting my well-being. There have been moments of kind of not burnout, but exhaustion and comparison, all of that kind of thing. And I really wanted to learn how I can kind of navigate that and be in an environment where everyone was there, not only for the musical theatre and the dance, but for the mindset training and stuff like that as well. The mindset and the mental health focus was definitely, a game changer, I guess.
What did you learn in that space that you will carry with you into your pursuit of the industry?
I remember we did a whole exercise on what makes you different. What about you do you love that makes you different and that you can kind of really take care of in order to realize your own self-confidence and self-worth rather than comparing yourself to others. Good. We learned about healthy comparison and how it is good to, look at what somebody else is doing and see how that could work for you, but it's about making that a positive thing and not a negative thing in terms of oh, I'm so much worse or oh, they're really bad. It's what can you learn from others' experiences and stuff.
Time for a quick recap. Here's what helps. Having people in your world who you can be real with. Courses and training around the actor's psyche, not just the skill set. Having talent and technique, sure, but also having a good temperament. Embracing your uniqueness and diversity. Staying connected with people who inspire you. Being courageous and getting back on that stage. Being part of an acting group or class like the Actors Club. Explore mental health first aid training. It certainly helps having a loving and supportive family who are willing to journey with you. Stand up for yourself and others when you see things that aren't okay. And educating yourself about what is and isn't okay through reliable acting youth services. Don't wait until you're hitting the lows. Prevention steps are so important. If you're experiencing a significant low at the moment, help is available. The number for Lifeline Australia is 13 11 14. Let me leave you with an email I received from Annie Rose Buckley, who played Ginty in Saving Mr. Banks. She says this: Saving Mr. Banks was an experience which has forever changed my life. If it wasn't for that opportunity, I would not be pursuing acting as a career now. I started my career with an exceptionally positive experience on an acting set. However, this positive experience has negatively affected my mental state, as I catch myself always comparing my childhood success to my next opportunities. I'm grateful that it's allowed me to find my passion within the arts, but I despise the uncertainty. The uncertainty of the acting profession has left me frequently questioning my abilities and my worth. Why am I not good enough? What did I do wrong? Why am I still putting myself through this constant rejection? It continues to remain tough, especially after leaving school. I feel as though I'm putting all my energy into a non-existent universe. COVID definitely didn't help. My family have continued to support me, and is definitely my strength through my anxious and uncertain days. They encourage me to just keep going. As a logical thinker, this can be quite difficult for me to comprehend. What's the point of fighting for a career that is so unreliable? It's the passion discovered in my youth that fuels my determination. The film and television industry is truly special. This profession has the ability to encourage change, question perspectives, stimulate joy, evoke emotion. It's a powerful form of material, but it requires resilience. As an actor, I still continue to fight. I'm continuing to study scripts and train under different teachers. Keeping busy helps me remain focused, and I love learning new perspectives from my teachers, classmates, and industry professionals. If I'm having a bad day, I go outside and reset. Of course, this doesn't make my frustration go away, but encourages me to focus on something new. My life has completely changed since Saving Mr. Banks, and I am eternally grateful. I still feel unsure at times about my situation and why it happened to me, but without the experience and the joy it brought me, I would have never thought an acting career would be a possibility. At the end of the day, I still love it and want it. This is my driving force. As I said at the start, if you connected with a particular person, a coping mechanism, or you'd like to explore a course or school that's mentioned, or you want to check out the longer form interviews, all the material is available at salthousecreative.com.au/mental health.
Crowded room with faces that don't know me. All I see is everywhere I'm gonna be. Found the possibility down every lonely street. I'll take the good and bad.